Okay, now we're to old business, and we get to have some more information on these school improvement plans. School improvement plan goals for each school will be reviewed by the building principal, and it looks like we are starting with Mr. Fridley from Mark Twain, who recently had a birthday.
Yeah, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, belated birthday.
Yeah, I truly appreciate you letting me postpone my presentation to attend a trip with my wife. Yes, I did turn 50, so I don't know if that's for some that's not a big deal, but for me it was a pretty big deal.
You are a young
So, yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is my seventh year presenting a school improvement plan for Mark Twain Elementary. It's hard to believe, but time does fly. Started my tenure at Mark Twain Elementary with a school that was a kindergarten through fourth grade. We had anywhere from 460 to 525 to all the way up to 620 students at one time. Now we are a pre-K through third grade building. This is our second year with pre-K in our building, and it's an amazing sight to see those students. I want to reiterate once again how important that's been for our kindergarten classes. I've watched those students. This is their second year in our building, and I've watched those students make their progress through our building, and it's great to see the growth in those kids. So that did not happen without the support of the community, and it continues to happen with the support of our community. So I want to say thank you as we're starting my presentation this evening. Hopefully I don't mess up there we go. All right. First of all, I'd like to explain how we put together our school improvement plan. Our school improvement plan in the past has been an all-faculty meeting where we've taken all four of our, we've taken four different goals and broken them into groups and had the groups put together the plans, the goals for the year. This year we did a little bit differently, and I've presented to you just the goals that will be to the board members, each of you, the goals that will be presented on our website as well as the quote-unquote placemat. But I wanted to talk real quickly about last year's goals. In the process, it's important to talk about how we put them together. We look at several things when we put together our school improvement plan. The first and foremost is looking at the school's school improvement plan to make sure that we support the needs of the district. Student performance on assessments, of course, is a key component. And then finally, surveys. We do surveys throughout the year, whether it's a beginning of the year survey at first quarter conferences, a survey that questions parents at third quarter conferences, or just a PTO survey. We want to know what our parents and our patrons feel we need to work on, and also what's going well. So what needs work and what's going well. So those are the components that we use as we put together our school improvement plan. And I've shared up there that we will share this. The pages that I've given you will actually be on our website for parents to look over, and hopefully the goals are written in such a way that if you're not an educator, you can still understand them. So looking back to last year's goals, I did not provide you with a copy of this, but I did want to go over this real quick because I think it is important to talk about how we did with last year's goals. The first goal focused on improving student performance in math and English language arts. Our goals for many years were written pretty similar. We changed a few things, changed several of the tools that we used. Every part of the first goal was measurable and continues to be a part of our school. But as you'll see this year, we've drilled down a little bit more specifically to each one of our professional or PLC teams. So I'll go through that. At the bottom, we talk about Mark Twain will improve citizenship skills. That's a key component of our positive behavior supports team. And you can see each one of our goals was met. Building-wide attendance will be 92% of all students will have an overall attendance rate of 90% for the year. Parent and child surveys will be utilized. We did that as well. Like I said, that's an important component. And with social media, we're getting more feedback through the from families, whether we send it out via Google Doc or we allow families to sit with an iPad while they're waiting on their teacher for third quarter conferences. It works really well. Get a lot of feedback that way. And then 90% of each homeroom class will attend a quarterly reward celebration. We did everything from dunk tank to pie in the face to try to help motivate students to continue to be good citizens, and it seems to work. And then another common theme that you continue to hear in our buildings is Class Dojo. Well, we use the Class Dojo data to look at both the positives and where some problems are with students. And so we did use Class Dojo reports, but we use it in our, and there's an acronym up there I want to explain it, Student Assistance Team Referrals. We can look at the data from a student's Class Dojo report and determine, is there a specific day of the week or a specific time that this student is having trouble, and try to help mitigate some of the problems that the person has by looking at, what's causing this. Is the student eating enough lunch, or, is he showing up late to school? Those are things that we've done. So those were components we had in place last year, and they've worked really well. The next dealt with in technology. Mark Twain Elementary will enhance instruction and communication through the use of technology. This is an area we're going to focus on, and I'll talk more specifically about this. The goals up there were 100% of all staff will be required to will complete their required technology. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. And that always is met. I make sure of that. We get the spreadsheet that says who hasn't gone, and I make sure that they go. The number of hours each educator spends on technology training was also met. And formal and informal observation and data will be tracked with regard to implementation of technology. And that's something that we have done, and I do, through observations and also through evaluation. I want to make sure that people are using the tools that we are spending money to implement in the classroom. And then finally, Mark Twain will identify, analyze data, and provide interventions for at-risk students. We have, over the last 7 years, we've worked very diligently to find ways to help students who were struggling, but also find ways to help students that are doing well. If you're a student who is doing well, you need to have an opportunity to do something to extend your learning. But you're for students who's falling behind, we need to find ways to help you as well. So the changes that we've made in our student assistance team and our response to intervention team have been crucial to that. So those are last year's goals. I think it's important to reiterate whether or not we met them and to talk about them. We've already talked as a faculty and staff about how well we did. Many of these things will still be going on. They will not necessarily be written in our goals, but they're still part of the culture at Mark Twain Elementary. So this is the part that I sent to you, that this is the cover page that will be on the website as parents are able to look at this. So from this page on, this will be available on our website. So the first goal, this goal was written, each of our teams has written a goal that they will work on throughout the year. We have our 4 teams. We'll start with the student assistance team. This team, they work diligently to develop interventions and find solutions for students that are struggling, and also for students that are maybe doing well, that we need to find a way to help them as well. If you're on the student assistance team, you spend a lot of time talking about students. You look at data points, everything from how well they're reading to math performance to behavior and attendance. We try to figure out ways to help students throughout our building. We look at all types of data, and we understand the importance of trying to find ways to move students forward. Ultimately, our goal is to allow students to show growth at their level. That's what it's about. So the student assistance team will focus on the following goals, and you can see they work on promoting a healthy and positive and supported environment for students. They assist students in dealing with at-risk behaviors. So we have interventions in place there, everything from our school therapist to our counselor who works with them. We align resources to increase academic and behavioral achievements. So we look at what we're doing and what's working and what's not, and try to improve. Essential links to social and state services. We're not afraid to help a family out. If we need to figure out a way to help them, we try to find ways to do that. And then we provide interventions for attendance, academics, behavior, and school health. So there are ways that we reach out to students above and beyond what you would say is the book work that we do in our school. We spend a lot of time in this team collecting data, talking about students, and not just collecting data, but looking at it and determining whether or not we found success with a student. I think it's important when you can find a student in kindergarten who is struggling, and by the time they leave 3rd grade, you say, we found success with this student. So that team has done a lot of work to revamp how they work. The next team that wrote the next goal is the positive behavior support team. If you come into our building, you will see many components of positive behavior supports. We find ways to motivate students to do the right thing, and we find ways to help them if they're not. So we help parents also understand how we're keeping those students accountable for their behavior through the use of Class Dojo and other components as well. The parent component in positive behavior is crucial. If we have parents on board, we get the support that we need, and oftentimes we can figure out ways. I'll never forget last year, I had a young man that was a kindergartner who was struggling with behavior. He had a hard time. And I called his dad in, and I showed him a list of all the times that he was getting in trouble and having difficulty in classes. We'd been in contact with him, but then I showed him a comparison between his student, a kindergartner, and the other kindergarten students. And he said, my son is getting in way more trouble in specials classes than anyone else. I said, yes, he has the most discipline referrals from specials in our entire building of all the students. And it really hit home to him. And he connected with his son to try to help him out. And that's what I'm talking about, is giving families an opportunity to help support their students. So this team works very diligently to support positive behaviors in our building, and it's working well. The next team is the team that I am the facilitator for. It is a building leadership team. One of the components we found through the use of our survey was that technology is an important component of our school, but finding ways to make sure that every student knows what he or she needs to know before he gets to the next grade level is something we've talked about. So this year we're writing some goals that we believe every student should be able to know or do by the end of the school year so they're ready for the next grade. So for example, our first grade teachers will talk to kindergarten and say, I would really like it if your kindergarten student, if you could teach them how to do X, Y, Z by the end of the year. That way when we start the year in first grade, they're ready to go. So we're doing this up and down, and we're actually going to work with Jeannie Strain to see that. I know that there are some goals that are being written district-wide for grade levels. But I think it's important that Mark Twain recognized the data that we collected on our surveys that said from teachers that not everyone is ready for the technology when they come to my grade level. Could you please help them with this? That was a teacher-driven goal. Our team will work on that this year. We'll look at what truly is expected of a student, and should we change some of the things that we're doing in order to make sure the kids are ready for the next one. So I'm looking forward to our team working together to reach this goal. And then finally, the response to intervention team. The response to intervention team, this team centers around interventions for students. You know, I equate this to one thing. When I started my career in education, response to intervention was a great acronym, RTI, that people talked about, and there was a lot of conversation about how you could implement. But one of the greatest analogies I ever saw was a conversation I had with a gentleman who talked about the model of presenting at the front of a classroom and then expecting that every student will get it. And we talk a lot about small groups at Mark Twain, and it's one of the things that I'm working very diligently this year to make sure that we have going on in different grade levels, all the way from kindergarten or pre-K even, all the way up to third grade, is having that individualized instruction. I remember back to this analogy of asking every person in the room to stand just anywhere in the room, and then telling each one of them that they had exactly 6 steps to make it out the door. And some people were right next to the door and they could make it. And some people were way up there. There was no way, no matter how big of steps they took, they weren't going to make it. And equating that to learning, thinking about every student starts at one place and needs to get, we know the end result, what we're looking for, but how are we going to get them from this place in the room to that doorway? So we've spent a lot of time on our response to intervention model. Last year we changed it, and people went back and have talked about how it wasn't effective. It didn't work to the extent to which we wanted it to work. So we're back to the model that we had before. I really appreciate the fact that teachers and staff are working hard to figure out ways to meet the needs of our students and to figure out ways to help students find growth in what they're doing. We're not all going to be A+ students, but we all need a hand up at times, and that's the thing that we're trying to do with our response to intervention team. So as you can see, our PLC teams have worked very diligently this year to continue to find ways to meet the needs of students. I appreciate the fact that the goals were written by the teams because they are the ones who will invest the time to make sure that they're met. Not that we didn't do it correctly before, but having an individual who's invested in a goal that they've written collaboratively with their group is an important component. And then finally on the placemat, you'll see the placemat. It's a great tool for families to see how we support the district's school improvement plan as well, and the components that we use. These are key components. I can tell you there are many more things that we do in our building to support what the district values, and we value as well. But this is an important way for you to look at how we support the district as well. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm willing to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any questions? Mr. Fridley, looks like you have some great things going on.
I believe we do. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.